Hey, welcome to the Fungus TCG channel. Today we're going to be looking at a matchup that's been requested by a lot of the other blue-green players, which is Blue Green Stax featuring Clarabelle, Bend to My Will, and a lot of ramp against Colin Etheridge. Today is going to be playing blue-red items. Colin is a longtime blue-red items player who's recently had a really good finish at CCS in the 11K, going X1 and 1 before getting eliminated by one of the aggro decks in the top 8. So he's going to be helping us out today to look at this matchup. And we're going to just go through play lines, look at the deck lists, and see where there are places maybe improve. I know a lot of people have struggled with this matchup, but I think it is very winnable from the blue-green side, if not favored. First, we're going to take a look at the blue-red items deck that he's going to be playing today. Colin is playing a blue-red items deck that I played for quite a while before trying out blue-green. This deck is pretty typical of the standard scene. A few notables versus some of the other item decks that are floating around. This deck does play 3 of the Queen to try to find some of those early items and to kind of act as a secondary card advantage engine. This deck does not play Tamatoa 6, but does play 4 copies of Maurice's Workshop. So some of the lists going around do play various numbers of some of these cards, but this is a list that was originally popularized by Sailor, and I played it quite a while to great effect. You'll notice also 3 Develop Your Brain. These are really just because as the blue-red items deck, you were looking to hit your Maurice's Workshop every single time. In terms of our blue-green matchup today, this actually might be a little bit more favored than the typical items list that does play those Tambatoas and some of the mid-rangey stuff, just because it does play for Maurice's Workshop, which is one of the key cards we're going to be trying to play around today, as well as those develops and some of the more control-oriented tools that are actually going to be really good in this matchup. So if you are interested in this blue-red deck list, I will post it in the details below. But really, he is just going to be looking to play out a ton of items, keep his hand healthy, and get to that big Tamatoa turn with Lucky Dime to hopefully one turn kill us or nearly one turn kill us. On the blue-green item side of things, this is a similar list to what you may have seen on Inkdex that I did well with recently in the 11K, but it managed to sneak into the top 8 of the 2K. This is a blue-green attrition deck, really focused around powering out a Clarabelle and then finishing them off with a Bend to My Will, and then just grinding them out with various tools like your Lady Tremaine, Muses, your Welcome, and just recurring threats with different things. Basil as well can come into play, especially in some of these grindier matchups. We've added a couple of different tools since the 2K just to try to get a little more points in the Amber Still matchup and some of the Green Still matchups. Of note, I've gone up to 4 Heffalumps and Woozles from that original deck list, and we have incorporated 2 Kit Cloud Chaser. If you're interested in some of the more intricate play lines here, definitely going to see more content in the future, but I think it's a really good metagame choice. And again, to kind of reiterate the point of this video today, this is really trying to show how you can approach the blue-red items matchup and how it can be a winnable matchup. If not, I would consider it even favored in a lot of cases, right? So the deck list will be linked out in the details below if you're interested in it. But really, our game plan is just looking to hit our ramp on 2, hit a secondary ramp to be able to play Clarabelle very early, and then play a couple of songs on that big Clarabelle turn to make it relevant. The You're Welcome is going to be a really big card for this matchup. Hoping to get that workshop on the tail to Clarabelle and then eventually Bend to My Will to close their hand out and make them play on very low resources. So we'll watch that as we continue on. Okay, let's take a look at our opening hand. And these are the hands we were able to shuffle up and mulligan today. First things first, we are looking for a curve, right? And we're looking especially for that two cost ramp. So we do have that Sail the Azurite Sea in our opening hand, which is going to be really important in this matchup. So we're absolutely going to be keeping that. I don't mind having a Popsicle even in a matchup where I'm not trying to force out that Bell really early. In this matchup, of course, we don't actually need the Bell. It's nice to be able to generate one maybe in a mid game when we're trying to dump our hand, but it's not going to be critical. On the play, I do like how far I'll go, and especially if we have a forecasting to go with it. That being said, we are really looking for a second piece of ramp and hopefully a singer for this How Far I'll Go, as well as our Clarabelle. So the Muse is not a critical piece in this matchup. Heffalumps and Woozles, not really what we're looking for as well. Vision and um, Mother Knows Best, also not really as critical. We can do better, right? We're looking for Grandma Tala, we're looking for Scrooge, and we're looking for Clarabelle. So we're going to try to high roll this. I'm going to keep the sail. I'm going to keep the popsicle. I'm going to keep the How Far I'll Go on the play, since we are going to be on the play for this matchup. Okay, and here is our altered hand. We were able to pull off, finding a little bit of more of what we wanted. We would have much preferred to see a Grandma Tala in these opening cards, but I don't mind seeing that second sale here, and I don't mind saying that you're welcome. Now, Mother Knows Best, as well as that Cloud Kicker, are not going to be very good in this blue-red matchup. So we are hoping to, off of these sales, off the popsicle, get some redraws, actually see cards that are going to be more relevant in the matchup. If we do not see a singer on turn 3, we can just run out How Far I'll Go. It's not that big of a deal. The blue-red deck does not get on the board very early, and the pieces we care about are really going to be their late game pieces, which is going to be Maurice's Workshop. Even if they establish that Maurice's Workshop early, really what we're concerned about is that second workshop, and maybe even going further out, right? We don't want them to keep their hand healthy, but we actually do want them to have a fair amount of cards in hand at the beginning of the game so that we can force out a Clarabelle early. Um, that being said, this deck sees a lot of cards, and you see that already in their opening hand. We see 4 card draws in our hand, even though we don't have the ideal hand, right? So we play a lot of these pieces. Some of the times with these hands, you just kind of trust the cards and play to your strengths. Probably going to be looking to ink that Cloud Kicker early, get a popsicle draw, hold my sails to hopefully get 2 sails off early, but 2 pieces of ramp is what I'm going to be looking for here. Of course, we are going to be on the play today, so that's going to kind of inform our draw decisions as well. But yeah, really just looking to ramp until we can hit a Clarabelle, and then looking for a bend to my will right after that. So we have some of the tools we need, but looking to the top of our deck and some of these redraws to get us there. All right, and we're going to jump right into the gameplay here. So don't have a secondary camera to be able to see hands, but I will try to walk through as much as I possibly can. You see that turn 1 of ink the Cloud Kicker and move into a popsicle to try to get that redraw. Looks like Colin follows up with the same as a popsicle. So here we're just looking to establish that ramp, right? I know we had that the original sale, and I imagine we saw a second piece of ramp here in our couple of draws we saw for the first couple of turns. Otherwise, we probably would not have inked that second sale. So must be looking pretty good here for our turn 3 ramp situation. On the play, we have the advantage here of being able to get way ahead on ink against this blue-red deck, and really that's what we're going to be looking to do as we continue on. So we see that he actually hit his sale as well, turning out a few popsicles, none of which we care about, right? Like, none of these popsicles matter to us early. In some of the other matchups, the blue-red items deck is going to want to get these things established so that they can contest with bells and things like that. Yep, and there we go. We see that found a Grandma Tala, which is our ideal draw here. Keeps us card neutral as far as things are concerned. And now with that How Far Ago we had in our opening hand, we're going to be able to sing and get way ahead on resources early here, which is really what we're just looking to do, right? We're looking to get to that early bend or that early Clarabelle as quickly as possible. Ideally, we hit a Clarabelle on our big ramp turn, and then follow that up with getting a hand off of this blue-red item slayer that has a lot of cards in hand, and then move from there. So it looks like he got a little bit stuck after his ramp here, did not hit the workshop right away, which is good for us. But even if he does hit the workshop here, we're not too concerned. Now, a fishbone quill would be kind of irritating, and it looks like he did hit that fishbone quill. So, and Colin knows the matchup. He knows kind of what's going on here a little bit, so he's going to be trying to dump his hand as quickly as possible. But I know I've been a lot of people have reached out to me and said, "Hey, what if they have Fishbone Quill? It just ruins our whole game plan." And we don't love it, but we do have a lot of tools still in this matchup to be able to play ball, so to speak, right? And here, Heffalips and Woozles goes in ink. We hit Donald for that second ramp, and we have a lot of board presence early on. Of note, the characters we have in play are both 3 power, which means that he doesn't have an easy time dealing with these things. Really, Be Prepared is the only good tool for dealing with our board most of the time, unless he's able to run out multiple coils. But what you find with this deck is once we start wiping their hand and start putting pressure on their hand, they don't have extra cards to be able to ink and just continue to reduce power of our Clarabellas and our 3 power characters. So we're looking to not play into any Sisu lines and give any free value. So things like the Muses are going into ink if we do see these. And he looks like he is just dumping his hand, anticipating a Clarabelle. Maui here, kind of a surprise. I just know these decks do play a few of them. And knocking out our Grandma Talon, not a huge deal. We're not too concerned about that at this point. She got her value, replaced herself, and got us a little bit of ramp for free as well. Gonna start out with a popsicle here, just looking for that Clarabelle line if we can find it, or a bend. Either one we would accept here. It's a little bit of decision making to see how we're gonna do, how we're gonna approach this potential payoff turn. If we do have the Clarabelle here, a line to ink and then play Clarabelle, and then potentially deal with the Fishbone Quill or the Maui with with either a Mother Knows Best or a You're Welcome would be our ideal line. But really, the Maui does kind of present a problem as he's going to kill off this Donald Duck and probably get some value off of it off those popsicles. So it looks like we did find that Clarabelle in those draws that we were able to take a look at. And remember, we saw 4 or 5 extra cards between the Grammatella and the How Far and the Sails and the double popsicle. So we were able to kind of carve out our hand and send these things to ink. And it looks like we do have the You're Welcome, which we're going to go ahead and target that Fishbone Quill. Now, the reason we target the Fishbone Quill here is that we really just don't have a better value target. Now, we could go after that Maui, of course, but honestly, if we lose the Donald Duck here, I'm not super concerned about that. We have a lot of ways to deal with a Maui, and if they want to commit 5 ink return to kind of replaying a Maui after we hit a Mother Knows Best, or we're hitting it with other various bounce tools, even like a Basil would be a fine answer for the Maui. We're really just looking for tempo-oriented plays in this matchup. Trying to keep them off of cards, make their plays awkward, and make sure they're not having a good time. And here we were able to draw a few cards off of this. The blue-red player doesn't have a ton of resources in play to really be able to challenge us right now. Kind of the worst thing that could happen in this scenario is for us to get hit with a Be Prepared. But to be honest with you, a Be Prepared is not going to be too big of a deal here. And he does have the Be Prepared to go ahead and wipe that Clarabelle out. Of course, Colin knows he's played this matchup a few times where, we played locals together or things like that, and he's a good player. That leaving that Clarabelle around for multiple turns, just generating value turn after turn is going to be kind of a death sentence in this matchup. So he was able to deal with it early. Looks like we did have the follow-up Clarabelle, though, which is going to create problems. And this body on Clarabelle is just something I want to make sure you understand that the 5/6 body on this into the blue-red items matchup is just incredibly difficult for them to deal with. They really have to hit it with a Be Prepared, or if we have an exerted Clarabelle, they have to hit it with a Maui or something. But none of these are really clean answers to this thing. If they do have the coil in play or multiple coils in play, yeah, they can generate some kind of advantage lines there, but really, sometimes even if they have no cards in hand, you're still happy to see Clarabelle because it's so big and it does quest for 2 and deals with a lot of the various things they have, like your bells and your Donald Ducks, if that's something that becomes an issue. Colin here just getting a redraw off of the popsicle, and we'll see kind of what follow-up he has. So, Free Scrooge, not a bad line for him. But again, nothing we're really concerned about. He is at this point looking to find those workshops and generate some advantage engines to actually deal with us being the proactive player. Something to consider in this matchup is, something some of you may know from other TCGs. It's like, who is the aggressor or who is the beatdown player? And in this matchup, we are the beatdown, we are the aggressive player. So we are looking to put pressure on them while controlling their resources with our stack spaces and kind of pressuring their hand, pressuring um, their lore count and things like that. We'll see that over the course of this matchup, though, really the blue red player never has time to actually sneak lore in. Um, with this blue red item stack, if you're not familiar with it, if you've played a ton of reps on it, they do win the game with a giant Tamatoa, but they do have to actually generate some resources along the way. They can't just play the game without questing at all the entire time, and still hope to have a competitive advantage here. So from the blue green side here, we see that we found a You're Welcome. So it looks like we're going to shuffle his Scrooge back into his deck, or excuse me, we shuffle his Workshop back into his deck. We are going to play a Mother Knows Best on that Scrooge, and then our last card in hand was that Bend. So we have 0 cards in hand here, and really just kind of taking the gamble, and less of a gamble, but taking the gambit that from this board position with I see 10 ink in play versus his maybe 7 ink in play. We think we're going to be better off in this situation, and he's just dumping a lot of resources into the bin. That dime is in there. We'll kind of just take note of that in case he does go for a Tamatoa line later on. That we know the dime is actually already in graveyard. It's a little bit difficult to deal with there. And here we're just leveraging the fact that we have a lot of good top decks and a lot of good redraws, right? Questing for 2 with that Clarabelle to get a little bit on the board. And Colin does really well with this draw. Actually finds the Workshop immediately, which is, what are the odds? We'd have to run the calculator up, right? But really, we're not concerned with one Workshop. We are concerned with him runner, multiple Workshops here, and starting to net gain cards. Really just playing items into this Workshop, drawing 1 card extra a turn with these kind of do nothing cards. We're not so concerned about it. Of note here, 4 Popsicles got played early on, right? So he doesn't have those innate card advantage cards that he would otherwise have in his deck. So we have that 1 Workshop here. He has 1 card in hand here. Usually he would ink whatever he had, unless he had something like a Sisu. So I'm kind of going to put him on that for what the card is. It could be a Be Prepare, but I would imagine he would have potentially run that out last turn. So finds a Scrooge into the 2nd Workshop, which is kind of like the worst case scenario here for us, right? This is, if he's going to dig out of this game, this is really the way he's going to do it. It's just drawing lots and lots of cards and getting his dead cards out of the way. You see a Brawl goes into ink without the coil. Really, the Brawl does nothing in this matchup. You don't have any targets for it. He wants to Brawl a Tipo. We're not too worried about that. So here we have a decently healthy hand. He has 2 Workshops. But we are still putting a decent clock on, right? We have about 4 per turn if we want to leverage that. Of course, he can knock that down with the Scrooge, but there is a time and a place where we will go ahead and send the Donald just to put pressure on the lore totals and make him kind of deal with our situation in play. Here we are looking for just redraws, stuff like Ramantala, stuff like our Vision, to find cards that are going to be relevant in this matchup and keep our card economy going. Something to note here is that if we do find a You're Welcome here, this may be a situation where we want to run a You're Welcome on one of our Popsicles. That being said, there is something to be said for just sending the Workshop back into the deck, but we kind of have to play that by ear here, right? And this is one of the secondary functions of that Popsicle. It's not only the healing, not only those cheating bells into play, but potentially turning You're Welcome into a kind of an expensive Friends on the other side. All right, it looks like he found another Scrooge. He's definitely keeping his card economy going, but he's still in a situation where we don't really care about most of the things he's doing, right? We are not really concerned about these Scrooges. They're not going to do anything on their own to Clarabelle's in that big 5/6 body. Of course, he can get stuff like Vitalisphere, and we saw he found the Fishhook to actually trade into these Clarabelles, but the resources he has to spend to do that, and look at the ink totals, right? If you see 8 ink to, I believe we're on 12 or so ink on the blue-green side. The blue-green deck tends to just have a huge advantage in terms of being able to play multiple things in a turn, and really just have more efficient threats and more efficient plays than the blue-red player if you're able to, play to your play well in the early game and kinda hit all your ramp pieces. Looks like he's gonna run a big Toe out here and maybe try to go for an aggressive line and get card advantage back. Not really content with where he's at. So, we do probably wanna deal with this Tamatoa. Looks like we have Mother Knows Best. Again, if he wants to commit 8 ink to doing this again, I'm not too worried about it. Happened to find the second bend, which is, I'd say, not gonna happen every single game, but we found 2 bends in the top half of our deck, which is great for us here. And, maybe we wanted to see a different card here. I would have maybe preferred a You're Welcome, but you play with the resources you have and kinda have to be modal in this point. So, we're happy to put him on 0 cards, make sure, he has the top deck items here to be able to generate any value, and he looks like we flashed the camera a little bit. He was able to find a Sisu, but these Sisus do nothing. These Sisus do nothing in this matchup. At this point, he doesn't have the coil, and even if he had the coil, he wouldn't be able to actually do anything with it. We're all the way up to 14 lore at this point with our 2 Clarabelles in play, and really no meaningful way to deal with these things at this moment. Even next turn after that bend with the 2 workshops, he's going to be able to draw a ton of cards off of this, but isn't really going to be able to do anything meaningful about it. It's because he is going to have to spend ink to get all of those cards, and then once he has those cards, he has to immediately deal with the board. And being on 8 ink and not being able to really ink every single turn the way we have been able to and generate all these resources, it's going to be a much more difficult for that blue-red player. Here we find the Tremaine, which is actually not a bad draw at this point. A lot of different options that we could go with here. We can just go for another bend if we think that's going to be a good answer. I believe in this matchup, we did have a Muses in our hand, which is why I ended up going for a different line. We're in a situation where if he does not deal with our board and kind of deal with the game right away, we actually have the ability to, between Muses and Tremaine, just loop bend to my wills every single turn. So we're not quite at the amount of ink to be able to do that, but if we can get there, we can really lock him out of these resources and make it so that really only thing that matters here is the top deck be prepared. These item decks tend to play 2 or 3 be prepareds depending on the deck. I know his version does play 2 be prepared. So a list that I ran last set. Really, this items deck did not change much from last set. Sometimes you'll see a sword in these decks, but it's not meaningfully different than it was last set either. So here we got Mother Knows Best with this Tremaine to try to start our loop and potentially deal with any big top decks he might have and to get that Sisu out of the way if we need to. So Mother Knows Best with this Tremaine is going to be able to bounce our Tremaine back to our hand, replay Tremaine, go get another song of value. And here we're at 16. He's only out to be able to deal with our board is going to be prepared. So he is digging for be prepared to try to sing that off of that Sisu at this point. Again, that ink economy, him being down to 8 or 9 ink, even having drawn that Fishbone Quill early, right? Like he had a quill on turn 3 and was inking his hand aggressively, but still was not able to really touch the ink on the blue-green side. That's something to really keep in mind as you are playing this game, is you really want to be going wide, inking fairly aggressively all the cards that aren't going to be useful in this matchup, so that you can have these big turns where you can chain different spells together, something like a Visions into your Clarabelle or Visions into your Tremaines. Lots of different resource battles here. So that's the end of that matchup. Blue Green took that one, even with him top decking multiple workshops after the bend to my will. A fairly close one here, but honestly, this is how these often go. Sometimes they won't draw the double workshop in these cases, and in the situations where they don't draw the double workshop, we're really leaving them with like, hey, I have so many dead cards in my deck, so many different things that won't really impact the board in a meaningful way. We're just looking to play our Basils, play our Clarabelles, play these Grandma Talas, all these value rich resources, and put a consistent pressure on them while not playing completely into a be prepared. We want to hold some cards for that be prepared in case they are able to top deck it. And then if they do have the coil, we're kind of playing around that and working that into our equation. But always consider with the coil and with their Sisu lines that they have to have cards in hand to be able to do that. They have to be able to ink potentially multiple times to actually kill a Clarabelle, to kill a Basil. So uh, best way to beat this matchup really is just knowing the blue red items deck in and out and kind of what their outs are and thinking through their potential plays, and then try to make tempo rich, very aggressive plays against them to keep their hand low, keep them on the back foot with answering your different threats while not completely overextending into that be prepared. This is going to be the first a game of 3 that we're going to publish out here. As I edit them, I'll get them posted. Let me know what you think about this one. Drop me a like and a like and a subscribe if you want more content like this, and then we will have the other games coming up here. We played a set of 3. I won one on the play, I won one on the draw, and I lost one on the draw as well. So we are going to show all 3 of those and kind of how they played out. All relatively close games from both sides. Really just a matter of keeping yourself aware of their outs and playing to your strengths in this matchup.